How to fight fair. These are going to be the 3 rules for having an effective argument and my secret for why things you've tried in the past haven't worked. So I'm going to work that out for you. And this is for what I'm teaching you today applies to any relationship, whether that's fighting fair at work, with your kids, yeah, I fight with my kids, with your partner, obviously, with anybody. This is for anywhere in your life this applies. And basically, there's a few things I want to talk about. So, and really what I want to talk about today first is having an actual fight versus a disagreement that which is really a planned fight. If you say, oh, we're arguing about how we spend money, and maybe that was a big fight, but now we've been talking about it a while and we need to sit down and talk about that. That's a different thing that's happening because you're calm, you're going to go sit and talk about it. A fight to me is when you are talking about if there's any milk left, and next thing you know, you're having a talk about divorce. Where it just blows up and you're thinking, how did that just happen? Or you're at your job and you're talking about something that you don't agree with, and 2 seconds later you're quitting. Or the person you're talking to says, I'm out of here, I'm quitting. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, we were just having a conversation, what happened? When people lose their you-know-what, that's a fight. And because what's happening is that the brain is hijacked. I talk a lot about this, but basically, whenever we are in anything that seems a threat to us, any kind of threat, it doesn't mean it really is a threat. It just means our brain is perceiving it as such. So your rational self might say, well, it's not a real threat just because my boss said he'd like to see me in his office at 2. But the rest of you is like, oh my God, why does he want to see me? What's going on? What happened? I wonder what I'm going to get fired. I'm going to live in a box. I'm going to, that, right? So you, rationally, and someone else might say to you, hey, why are you worrying about it? You don't know what it is yet. When you get there, you'll figure it out. You're a good employee. Don't worry about it. But you can't stop. It's because your brain got hijacked. And when your brain is hijacked, it's very hard to do anything but fight, flee, or freeze. Those are the 3 things that happen when the part of our brain called the amygdala turns on, and our sympathetic nervous system turns on, and all of our stress-inducing hormones come pouring out, and all that good stuff happens, and we're having a physical response, and that's the problem. So I don't want to, I've done lots of videos on that physical response and how to stop it and tools for that. What I'm going to say right now is that I have an amazing tool that you can download for free. There's going to be a little button or link somewhere here, probably right below the video. And I call it the wake-up word exercise. It's basically a neurolinguistic programming or NLP technique that will help you get out of any fight very quickly and get in, because the point is to turn off that amygdala, that fight, flight, or freeze response, and turn on the thinking side of your brain. And those 2 sides of your brain can't be on at the same time. If you're in one, you can't be in the other. So the good news is once you sort of turn off that physical response you're having, you can start to think again. This is why, hours after an argument, you'll think of all the great crap you should have said. Hours later when you're calm, oh, why didn't I say this? Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I can't believe I did that. What was I thinking? That's why all that happens, because that part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, finally turns on. So I'm going to take you through. So let's say that that's happened and that now we can get out of the fight. That's the secret, though. You have to turn that off first so that you can then use the rest of what I'm saying to have this really effective argument or effective fight. And there's 3 main rules I'm going to talk about. And the first one is that you have to focus on the what, not the who. So when I say, in other words, you have to focus on what the argument is about, not the person you're arguing with. And what happens is we often do character assassinations when we're talking to the other person. We use the always or never language. We diagnose them. You're mean, you're bipolar, you're depressed, you're angry, you're this, you're that. We tell them who they are, and we diagnose them in some way. We end up with a lot of you language. You need to do this, you should do this, you should do that. And we don't stay you have to stay in the present moment. It's what's happening right now. I understand that your boss might ask you very often, and you want to use the word always, but don't, it seems like all the time they ask you for something right before you're leaving the office, literally, like, well, in the days when we used to leave an office, or right before the end of your workday, they're asking for something that's going to take like another hour of your time all of a sudden, even though you had all day there. And this happens a lot, not all the time, but a lot. And so it's easy, I know, in that moment to say, hey, you're always doing this, or, you know, that kind of thing. But just talk about what's happening in that moment. And then if it happens again, you can talk about that moment in that moment. And trust me, they'll catch on. So you want to talk about just what's happening there, and only this situation. So you don't want to expand it into other things that are similar. You know, if the sock is left on the floor and that's what you're arguing about, don't also mention the dishes in the sink and you always do this and you treat me like a maid. And, you know, again, so we're doing it all wrong, right? Diagnosing, generalizing, catastrophizing. We're not just talking about the thing, all the wrong stuff. And we're really, again, focusing on the other person and how angry we are at them, as opposed to what's happening in the situation and talking about the situation, and only that. Then the second rule, I want you to think about your focus and your focus of feeling, and what else are you feeling? So anger, I say this a lot, is a top emotion. So that would include being angry, frustrated, resentful, rage goes in here, you know, enraged. Any of those are top emotions. And so they are guarding something else. Anger is always, you know, there's always something else underneath. There's something underneath. And so you really need to ask yourself, what else am I feeling? Right now, what else? I have to name something else besides anger. What is it? And it's so helpful to just go down like that, to just go into the what the feeling is. And what you'll often find is that you're afraid, you are sad, overwhelmed, worried, anxious. It's fear, though, of some kind. That's always what it comes down to. It might be fear of losing the person. It might be fear of losing your job. It might be fear of being criticized. It might be fear of being found out in some way for something. But that's what it is. And until you get there, you're not going to be good at whatever this is and whatever's going on, because you're going to be reacting, not acting. So and that's why we use that always or never language. We're talking about something it reminds us of all the times before. And that's how we get resentments, right? To re-sense something, resentment, to sense something again. What does this remind you of? What's this old thing? And when you focus on feelings connect, thoughts disconnect. And you know this is true whenever you've been talking to anyone and they start just talking, all the facts, all the evidence, all the things, and they just start talking, and you find yourself, you know, with your eyes rolling up in the back of your head and kind of bored even. There's no connection here. The feelings, when someone says, hey, I'm really hurt, or I'm so sad right now, or I feel really overwhelmed, I'm really scared, we connect, we want to move towards. Now, again, but the feeling, if your only thing that you're putting out there is anger, that does the opposite. That has people leaning out and not connecting in because they're afraid of it. It's very effective to just be angry all the time and try to get your way, I guess. It's kind of like throwing a tantrum. But instead, I invite you, I say with love, I invite you to not do that and to look a little deeper at your own things, your own motives, your own fears, and go there and come from that place. That's where the honesty is. That's where the true connection and conversation is. I say a lot, you have to connect to correct. You can't just start telling people what to do if there's no connection there. They won't do it. They won't listen to you, or they'll do it out of pure coercion or fear, and then you can't get them to keep doing it. And then you get passive-aggressive behavior and all kinds of, who needs it? Who wants it? Nobody. So instead, I want you to think, well, I have to connect first, and the way to connect is with feelings, not thoughts, so let me get to the feelings. See how that all works? It's like a beautiful little, I'm tying it up in a bow for you. And then the last thing is the third rule is I need you to be curious and solution focused. Okay, so curious and solution focused. You have to be curious going into any argument, fight, anything, if it's going to be effective. I say it a lot, you have to listen like you're wrong. You have to really be willing to not, what I also say a lot, not sack any relationship that you're in. So don't offer this SAC, don't sack, don't offer suggestions, give advice, or criticize. And instead, ask questions, be open. What else could be true? What have we tried before? What have we not? You want to come to some new place of being. And I've also discussed this, which is that most people see any kind of argument or fight or whatever as a line. I'm over here, you're over here, and there's this line that connects us, and I want A and you want B, so we have to get in the middle and find something that's in between A and B. And we have to compromise. You always hear that. You got to compromise, got to compromise. No, you don't have to. Compromise is the worst, because the research shows that when we compromise, each side that compromises thinks they gave up the most. So instead, I have two people, and you know, every time you've compromised, you felt like the other person got more than you did. You don't feel like you came out on top. You don't. You still feel resentful or whatever about it. But they do too. So I end up with two resentful people. This is not good. This is not solution-based, problem-solving, anything. And instead, I always want you to think of these things as a triangle. And so you guys are, I'm here, you're here, but then instead of just being here, we're gonna instead bring that energy up into a solution that's ahead of us, something that we haven't even thought of yet, something that's gonna come from our brainstorming and asking questions and thinking things through differently. That's when you're curious. When you are willing to say, there's something else. It's not necessarily what they want, said or what you said, but there might be something else to be said. There might be something that, not where these two meet in the middle, but where they meet out front, where they meet with something bigger, better, bolder, more yummy, more whatever. And having that mindset, having that thought process is really what's going to get you to the finish line. And just as a last piece, I want you to, and this isn't, I guess this is rule number 4, and I lied. Maybe it's not 3 rules. Maybe it's 4. I'm still going to name the video 3. Don't fight with an audience. I mean this in a bunch of ways. I mean, don't fight in front of people, number 1. Take it somewhere else. Certainly don't fight in front of your children or in front of your mom or whoever, or your boss or your coworker. Take it somewhere else. Go get private. That's 1. And 2, don't fight in front of other people also means do not talk to 20 people about this argument. Don't do that. First of all, you're trying to set up sides. You're trying to get people to agree with you. And how can you be curious later if that's all you're doing? And instead, I want you to identify a maximum of 2 people that you use consistently. It's the same 2 for everything. I really highly recommend one's a therapist or a coach, someone who's actually trained to listen and come up with new responses and help you think things through differently. Or that one friend that you have that you just, give everything to. And yeah, maybe they're always Team Abby, but they're also Team Abby in a way of letting you know when you're full of crap. That's also Team Abby. When my best friends say to me, I don't know about that, and really help me look somewhere else. And here's the thing people don't realize is that, and this has happened a lot, like I'll have a couple in my practice, and let's say the wife cheated. And they'll come in, and so let's say the husband was off telling his family, his friends, everybody, she cheated on me, I hate her, she's the worst, everybody should hate her with me, right? So first of all, everybody's hating her now. This isn't helpful by any stretch of the imagination, especially, God forbid, if there's kids involved or something. But beyond that, guess what happens a lot? You decide maybe it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Maybe you can reconcile and get past this. Maybe, you're realizing maybe your part in things, not that it's ever gives permission to people to cheat. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it takes 2 to tango in a relationship, for a relationship to get very off course, enough for someone to be cheating. And maybe you decide to reconcile. Now what? So you might forgive your wife, but guess what? Your mom isn't going to forgive her. Your best friend's not going to forgive her. All the people now aren't going to forgive her, and you're screwed. You're in a situation that's pretty untenable. So don't talk crap about your partner or your boss to other people, because then if you decide to keep the job, or it's not so bad, or find another way to think about it or whatever, they're like, oh no, you said, and you're going to get yourself in you're going to paint yourself in a corner. You don't want to do that. You want to leave your options open, and you want to think more critically about what's going on. So maybe that's rule 4, maybe that's just an extra for you, but there you go. So those are the 3 rules for having an effective argument. I'm Dr. Abby Medcalf. I help people create love, connection, and ease in every relationship.